speaker will talk about a game-changing expedition to unearth the best solutions to end plastic pollution.
CEO and co-founder of Plastic ODYSSEY. Well, first of all, let me tell you a bit about my background. I've studied maritime sciences and I started my career at sea, sailing as a merchant navy officer on big commercial vessels like container ships or passenger ferries. And I've always been passionate about environmental issues. I started by looking for ways to recycle the single-use soaps disposed of in hotels. Then I became interested in CO2 pollution produced by commercial ships and trying to find ways to cut this CO2 pollution. And I finally became devoted to plastic pollution reduction when I came back from an expedition in Dakar in 2016. Actually, plastic pollution is quite a tricky issue, to be honest with you. At first glance, when you consider the problems through the lens of the media, you get the impression that plastic pollution only comes down to what is visible at the surface of the ocean. We've all seen pictures of floating debris, but actually these pictures are not taken offshore, but usually near the coastline, and they do not measure up to the immensity of the problem we face. Now, in reality, the pollution is mostly invisible. This picture has been taken in the middle of what is being called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. You know this vortex in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that gathers pollutions? Well, as you can see, this is far from the image we have of a waste island. This is just a wide area full of microparticles. And when you read the scientific papers, you realize that what is floating at the surface only marks 0.2% of the problem. Because over the 80 million tons of plastic that's been dumped into the ocean, well, only an average of 165,000 tons is estimated to be at the surface. So, why is that? Well, firstly, because most of plastics sink due to their density and end up on the seabeds before being caught by trawlers and recycled into fabrics by our friends from WOF. But secondly, also because plastic does not remain intact. Usually, once it is in the ocean, it degrades itself into tiny particles and thus enter our food chain. Recent studies have shown that each week we eat 5 grams of microplastic, the equivalent of a credit card of microplastics. So for those two reasons, you can see that it's not really conceivable to remove plastic from the ocean, but that doesn't mean we can't reduce this pollution. The plastic issue is like a tap wide open. Each year, over 10 million tons of plastic are dumped into the ocean. That's almost 20 tons of plastic every minute. You can imagine that's a tremendously huge amount of pollution. But we can turn off the tap, actually, and that can solve the problem. For that, there are 2 mitigation strategies that must be implemented at the same time. The first one is what we call clean up the past. Cleaning up the past by acting ashore before it's too late. That means collecting and recycling all the mismanaged waste that has been produced and that will continue to be in the coming years. The second action is building a future by reinventing the use of plastic, getting rid of single-use ones and also developing alternatives. That's the 2 major challenges. Clean up the past and build the future. The first urgent step is to prevent the 5 billion tons of mismanaged waste from causing more environmental problems. because that's the amount that has been produced and that is waiting in the nature currently. Generally, these mismanaged wastes are found in low to middle income countries that don't have access to infrastructure to collect and recycle plastic. So today, these wastes are just dumped in the nature or openly burned, like here in the picture, which is really a bit like burning money. It's a shame. So instead of burning it, what actually if entire population which suffer from this mismanagement could economically benefit from the recycling of it? What if plastic could actually hold value and empower thousands of communities? But actually, for decades, entrepreneurs, industrials, and innovators have been creating sustainable tools and methods to process plastic waste all over the world. So that's why the Plastic Odyssey team, we thought, okay, why don't we let go and meet them and share these solutions to everyone? Did you know that it is possible to transform plastic into furniture? To make a school desk, for example. Or we can create chairs out of it. Or building materials that can replace wood and thus limit deforestation. It's even possible to transform the non-recyclable ones back into fuel. Yes, you can actually turn 1 kilogram of plastic back into 1 liter of diesel and gasoline to generate electricity. And that's called the pyrolysis process. It's already known, so that exists already. And don't get me wrong, this is not the fuel of tomorrow. This process really enables a transitional fuel that avoids further extraction of the crude oil, and then its transport to the other side of the world. So really that's a good way to get rid of the non-recyclable plastics. It can provide energy to power other recycling machines, for example, or replace the oil in fishing boats or generators used to provide electricity in many places. So all these technologies exist, whether to recycle or to turn plastic into fuel. But the problem is, all this knowledge remains in the end of a few. There is no plastic recycling academy, if you can imagine. And that's exactly what we want to offer with Plastic Odyssey. Our goal is to free knowledge by sourcing the best solutions worldwide, document and disseminate them across the globe. We want to build a catalog of affordable technologies which are easy to maintain, easy to replicate, and that can turn trash into cash for local communities. That's the idea, whether to consolidate an already established recycling network or to lay the former's foundation. And in order to allow easy replication of it and also a better maintenance, we believe in the power of open source. That means releasing drawings, know-hows, and business models for free. In sum, the power of Wikipedia, but specially adapted to the management of plastic waste. Our ambition is to build a global network of local initiatives. Our mission is to encourage social entrepreneurships at the local level, to stimulate social engagement, and to empower local communities. We don't really aim to create these businesses ourselves. The goal is for local entrepreneurs to be the one to replicate the idea. We can't pretend to know every country, knowing that the context will vary, the culture will vary a lot, and the way to start a business as well. So that's why we want to help communities with this technical knowledge to turn trash into cash. That's the first part of the mitigation strategy, the clean up the past. But that can't be enough. Why is that? Well, because recycling can't be done in a perfect closed loop. That's the first reason, and also because it requires a lot of energy to run the recycling. So that's why we also need to build a future without disposable plastic waste. A future where this precious material is only used when no alternative exists. Let me take one example to illustrate the challenge we are facing. Let's take the plastic coffee cup lid. You know, this white plastic thing we put on the coffee cup. But there are several approaches to getting rid of them. You can, first of all, you can reinvent the use. That's the better option. That means switching from a disposable coffee cup to a reusable one, a mug, with a wooden lids, for example. Then another solution could be to reinvent the design. So you still have a disposable coffee cup, but this time it's paper made and foldable so that you don't need any lid. And finally, if none of the two options are acceptable, you can choose to make a lid out of another materials, bio-sourced by example. So as I said, the first option is often the best one, as it uses less resources, but also it's often the hardest to get accepted. And that's the reason why it's also really important to work on social behavior and on changing the mentalities. Having explained you our vision to clean up the past and then to build the future, I will briefly tell you about our plan to accelerate these strategies. Over the last 4 years, the Plastic Odyssey team has been preparing a game-changing expedition in order to unearth and disseminate the best ideas to stop the leakage of plastic pollution around the world. We are currently turning a 40 meters long research vessel into a plastic lab, an ambassador of the reduction and recycling of plastic waste. There will be two areas, one dedicated to recycling solutions at the aft, so clean up the past, turning trash into cash, and the other one at the fore part of the ship would be a showroom to highlight the best ideas to get rid of all disposable plastic waste. This ship will be a logistical tool to experiment and develop these prototypes, but also a great communication platform to reach a maximum number of people. During each stopover, the systems will be tested and demonstrated to local key players like investors, entrepreneurs, companies or incubators, with the hope of acting as a catalyst to build a global network of local businesses and to turn the tap of plastic pollution off. The vessel will set sail in 2021, so departure is coming very close now, and we will go from France to Africa, then South America, and finally Asia. So don't hesitate if you want to learn more about this crazy adventure to visit our website, to follow us on the social media, and we see you guys soon in Asia, hopefully. Thank you very much for the invitation again, and bye bye.